Welcome to a pivotal moment in the world of broadcast as we proudly present the Men's Mental Health Show featuring the renowned Larry Mabry in collaboration with the Maassen Group. This essential exploration of men's mental health wouldn't be possible without the invaluable support of Rainier Avenue Radio World. Now, let's dive into this crucial conversation with Larry Mabry and the Maassen Group. Your mental well-being matters. Here's Larry Mabry.
Hey, welcome. Hopefully everyone's doing well on this beautiful Monday, April 22nd. Beautiful day out. If you guys haven't been out, make sure you guys get out there. Today, I wanted to talk a little bit about, I was talking to a few clients and they've been kind of expressing some challenges, and noticed a couple callers that called in and kind of expressed the conversation of toxic masculinity. What is it? What is toxic masculinity? In a nutshell, I'll kind of talk about some things that I really kind of experienced when I was growing up, see if you can kind of relate. So, basically, what does toxic mean? Basically, when something is toxic, basically, it's just too much, right? If you do too much of something, it can get out of control. It can become toxic. Masculinity is basically being a man, but when we actually talk about being toxic and having masculinity, basically it's doing a little too much, right? And let's talk about that. So toxic masculinity is basically, it kind of gets thrown around as like a buzzword, but basically it's just having an attitude or set of social guidelines where stereotypes are associated with manliness, but often it has a negative impact on men and women and society in general. And in our society, we see or experience a lot of toxic masculinity. And so the goal basically with that is to basically see people doing a little too much, right? A lot of times we see it nuanced, but there's a few behaviors that we notice that are definitely toxic within masculine behavior. So if we notice friends or people or family are very homophobic, which basically teaches that homosexuality is something negative, that would basically be toxic masculinity. People have the right to do, be, and have whatever they want, however they want to do it. And if they're having certain negative type of connotations towards someone's preference, to me, that's toxic. Also, if you have an individual that needs to have control, right? They're trying to exert their dominance, that would basically be toxic, right? Someone's trying to basically say that, okay, it has to go this way, by all means necessary. That would be need for control, right? Encouraging people to exert their power, their dominance. We also see this in like domestic violence relationships where a man may try to dominate an individual female. And unfortunately, a lot of those relationships, they are basically, it puts people in situations where they basically struggle emotionally because they're put in these situations that are just not healthy for them, right? Another form of toxic masculinity would be promiscuity. So we notice men are having multiple partners out here and not honoring themselves or honoring a relationship, that's toxic. We know there's a lot of different diseases and things floating out here, so it's very important to make sure that people are taking care of themselves. Also, refusing to help out in the household duties, right? Feeling like you are too big or too much above that type of thing. That's toxic, right? If you are in a household, it's important for you to make sure you're doing your part as far as the dishes, making sure you take out the trash, clean up the house, things of that nature, the chores. Very, very important. The cooking, the cleaning, child care, make sure it's balanced. Also, if people are having aggression towards other individuals, or it could be individuals of the opposite sex, um, that to me is a form of toxic masculinity. If you are a little bit aggressive, or basically running certain types of comments regarding somebody and not honoring that individual, or basically bullying that individual, to me, that would definitely be a toxic masculine type of role, right? And so, why am I mentioning this? Well, honestly, I feel as though sometimes we grow up in situations and we experience things and we think, oh, this is how it is, right? Um, I recall when I was in middle school, actually this was in high school, where I had a couple friends who were teasing another friend. And I had to make a choice, right? It was like, okay, do I want to make sure that I honor the friendship, even though I knew in my hearts of hearts that they were doing something wrong, or do I speak up? Um, in that situation, I spoke up, and unfortunately, I had to lose those friends, but I had a conscience. I was able to sleep at night, and that other individual got some reparation. They got some sort of peace and justice in that situation. Um, Back in the day, I want to kind of explain a story. So back in the day, I was a safety. For those people that don't know, way back in the day, when children used to cross the street, they used to have what we call the safety patrol. And the safety basically would have these belts. They were like orange belts that we would wear. And we were like middle school, elementary, high elementary, upper middle school. And our job was to kind of man the crossroads, like where students would cross. And a lot of interesting things would happen there. So sometimes, we would have to communicate fights. Sometimes we would have to intervene, to make sure that people were safe, because people were driving crazy sometimes coming down the streets. And one time I was working with this particular very busy intersection and trying to make sure that, kids got across safely. And there was an altercation where someone threw a rock, and they threw a rock at a car while it was moving. And it would have been okay if it actually just hit the car. I mean, but what ended up happening was the window was open and actually hit a child in the car. And unfortunately, they were hit. It was a very messy situation. And a mother was driving. She kind of pulled over and said, "Hey, someone hit my baby," that type of thing. And I mean, I had to make some calls. I had to make some moves. And a lot of things were happening fast. Had to intervene, and I wasn't very popular at that time. And unfortunately, this was a situation where um, it was a racial type of motivated type of issue, where the individuals in the vehicle were white, and the individual who threw the rock was black. And I'm obviously black, and it was one of those choices. And I'm like in elementary school, and honestly, it was one of those things where it's like, what's right is right. It didn't really matter as far as race or that type of thing, because how I looked at it was, what if that was me? What if that was my sister, or a family member? I would not want them to go through that. And so I ended up communicating to the powers that be in that situation. And I was called all types of things. um, because basically I sold people out. Um, but I'm bringing that up because, you know, part of making those tough choices is sometimes you got to stand alone, right? And part of being a man of integrity, which is kind of the opposite of toxic masculinity, is sometimes you have to be by yourself against those individuals who just don't agree. Sometimes you have to leave some friends behind, leave cultures behind, leave situations and people that you thought were part of your community behind. And that's a very, very, very tough place to be. And what drives you? Think about that, right? So, those individuals that are out there, what are some things that drive you, that help you make those right choices no matter what you're going through? Are you motivated by what people think about you? Or do you have your own mental moral core compass, right? What are those things that you're using to make sure that you're making the right choices, right? Are you able to sleep at night because you know that you made the right choice? Well, that situation worked out. The individual got taken care of. And unfortunately, those individuals who were flagrantly disrespecting that young lady and young man, I think there was some litigation and that type of thing. So, but it was very, very catastrophic in the community for a while, because, like I said, I was a safety, and people would bully me because they felt like I didn't make the right choice. Sometimes it was a little scary. Like I said, I grew up in Detroit, so there was a lot of interesting things that would go down. A lot of gangs and things of that nature. And so you had to be real tough. You had to be real strong. Um, and it's not easy, right? But who motivates you, right? I was talking to one of my clients, and we had a really good conversation, and I wanted to kind of share this. So, as you start doing work, and what I mean by work is like when you start either working with myself or you work with a counselor or therapist, and you start doing the inner work and changing yourself, a couple things are going to happen. One is you're going to feel a little lonely. You're going to say, well, why is that, bro? Well, what's happening is when you start taking care of things within yourself, what happens is you start drawing a line and you let people know that those things that you allowed, you no longer allow. And so, unfortunately, individuals who took advantage of you, they will have to get cut off. um, People who manipulated and were dishonest with you, they're going to continually do that. But now you start setting it down the parameters and start letting them know, hey, um, you know, the way that I'm going to allow you to roll with me is going to be a little bit different. And so you got to cut people off. And so at the end of the day, it's going to be more beneficial for you. But as you rise and you grow, it's going to feel a little lonely at the top. But here's the part that's really cool. You'll actually end up attracting a different quality of people or person around you because you're being more authentic with yourself. Right. Um, and so I'm sharing that because as you go through that transition, a lot of people are like, man, it's tough. Like I said, I speak to different clients. And when they're doing this work, I would say, it could take anywhere from a couple months to a couple years where you literally feel like you're climbing a mountain by yourself, right? Things work out for you. A lot of positive things work out for you. But when you start changing things and letting people know, hey man, I'm not really doing this anymore, people get pissed off. They get upset, right? It's kind of like being in the classroom and you know you get an F and you notice that your classmate get an F, and all of a sudden you feel better because you're like, okay, well, I guess I'm not that smart, right? Which may or may not be true, but you feel like, okay, you get some validation because other people failed, so now you can blame the teacher, right? It's the same type of thing, the crabs in the bucket mentality, right? And then so when you elevate, then you let people know through your actions of what they're not aspiring to be. And at the end of the day, they have the same choice you have, right? And so, how do you get out of the toxic masculinity for those individuals that are men? Well, the first thing is you have to have daily conversations with yourself. Ooh, yeah, let's talk about that. What does that look like? Well, personally, what I recommend is when you get up first thing in the morning, the first thing you need to do is have some affirmations for yourself. What does that look like? Well, get up, make sure you thank you know, God or your spiritual being or some sort of entity that you respect, that you look up to. I think that's important. Make sure you have that conversation. And why is that important? Well, because it's going to give you introspection, right? Introspection is important because no one out here knows everything, right? And sometimes people got to call you out on stuff, and you have to step back and say, man, you know what? You're right. I need to do better with that. Um, and as you take that introspection and you start kind of clearing out those things that no longer serve you, you'll notice that your days will be a little bit lighter. You'll notice that you'll have a little bit more confidence. And what I like to do is talk about making sure you take care of what I like to call your little child or your inner child, right? And that's the little boy, the little gentleman that you avoided back in the day, right? And you know how sometimes you had that little voice that tell you something and you go against it, and then you think to yourself, man, I should have, man, I know I knew better and didn't do in that situation, right? But it felt good in the moment, but then you feel terrible afterwards, right? And so what I suggest is start listening to that little inner voice, start honoring that little voice, and you'll notice your life change for the better, right? But again, you're going to have to leave some people behind because those individuals are not honoring their little inner voices. And so when you stand up and you say, you know what, I need to take care of me because it's important to me, then you'll notice, yeah, some people will leave, but you'll get a lot more benefits out of it. You'll notice that your quality of life will be a lot better, a lot better. Um, I remember talking to one of my clients who was going through a tough time, and he really started doing some introspection. And just by him doing that inner work and clearing out some things, he ended up moving to a better place. He ended up getting a better position, better job. He ended up organizing his life a little bit better, having some goals. And yes, it was tough because he had to let go of some of those things that he was attached to that wasn't really serving him. And that's the inner work, right? If you have certain habits that's just not being beneficial for you in the long run, you have to basically put your big boy pants on and make those choices and change, right? Is it going to happen overnight? Of course not. It's just one of those things you have to constantly work on a little bit at a time. And so, one of the biggest things that people may have with toxic masculinity is that overly aggressive type of behavior. And a lot of that leads into that fight or flight. But if you could take a step back and not get triggered with certain things and just kind of let it dissipate, you'll notice that you'll come up with better solutions to solve an issue, right? A lot of times people are looking for attention. And if you just give them exactly what they want, then guess what? Who won? They won. And sometimes people look for attention, and rather than you just give them that attention, you just kind of step back and just acknowledge it, but don't really hone into it and just like kind of let it drop. Then what happens is it can't get ignited, it can't flame up, it can't blow up out of control, right? And so as you give to yourself emotionally, you'll notice that you will gain what we call emotional intelligence, right? You'll start honoring your feelings. And by that, I mean, that's your little inner self. I like to call it my little Larry, right? What are you doing to have fun with your little Larry or your little voice, right? Are you taking them out? Are you going to swings? Are you doing those things that you used to do to have fun? Are you just caught up on work mode all the time? You know, it's beautiful out here. Are you taking them out, flying a kite, right? And, I like to bring that up because a lot of what we create is based on us being creative. And if we're in work mode all the time, we're in business mode all the time, then guess what? We can't really become creative. And so it's important for us to really tap into that creative side so that we can create those ideas or open up those synapses to connect with different, better ideas. Okay. So I want to put that out there. And so if you're looking to get some assistance, if you need some help, reach out to me. You know, you can shoot me a text, 586-719-5193. It's a Michigan number, but I'm here in Washington. If you look at here, I have my site here. You can connect that way. Or, if you want to reach out here, you got a question, feel free to reach out to us here on Instagram. Also, too, last time I spoke to you guys a little bit about what are some things you guys want to talk about, right? Are you noticing that some of the things I brought up, is that beneficial? Do you feel like that'd be beneficial for you, right? Think about it. Okay, so we're going to transition. So as you guys may know, this week is Earth Week. Earth Deserves More Than a Day is currently in session every day this week. And we have some special environmental programs that's going to be going on until Friday from about 10 o'clock till 5, starting tomorrow. And tomorrow we're going to have the 10 o'clock Resilience Hub panel. So make sure you guys take a look at that. That'll be fun. And then at 12:30, it's going to be the Solid Grounds Rent Smart presentation. So make sure you guys take a look at that. And then on the at 2 o'clock tomorrow, it's going to be Communities of Conscience panel. So make sure you guys take a look at that and see what's going on with the events with that. And then we also have the 3:30 Circular Economy Business Park panel. So make sure you guys take a look at that. Sounds like it'll be a lot of fun. And so as you guys celebrate or get caught up with Earth Day, what are you doing to give back to the earth? Right? Think about, we wake up every day, we take in this fresh air every day. What are we doing to give back? Right? Are we giving thanks? Are we mowing the lawn? Are we just, showing gratitude to the way Earth is providing for us? Right? Very important to think about that, because whatever you put out, guess what? It comes back to you. So if you're showing gratitude, you're showing appreciation, you're showing acknowledgement, you're showing humbleness, then guess what happens? Those things come back to you. So if you're angry, you pissed off, disrespecting people, then what do you think you're attracting? You're actually attracting that back to you. So one big clue that I would suggest for people is take one thing that you're struggling with and try to tweak it, try to change it. And then look and see, by you making that one action, if you notice that within like a week, you should notice something change within your life, right? Big clue. You'll see some big transformation just by trying that. Also, too, I want to make sure we remember to make sure we shout out to Dr. Tracy Harrell. Right after this particular broadcast, she'll be on Better Together, Living Powerfully. Make sure you guys check her out. She and I have been talking. We'll probably be doing something coming up pretty soon. Looking forward to that. So make sure you guys take a look at that. Also, too, one other thing, too. How can you, moving forward, how can you show positive masculinity? What does that look like? Well, that means that you don't always have to yell when you're upset about something, right? You stand within your power. You communicate effectively to people. You don't really operate out of fear, and you don't really need to overpower people, but you let them know the boundaries. You let them know that, hey, you know what? I appreciate if you do this way, or you know what? I'm not really looking forward to that. Right. And so that's how you show more of a balanced masculinity as a man. Right. And a lot of times, we as men, we feel like we can't be sensitive. We can be sensitive, but there's a way that we can actually convey it. It doesn't mean that we just let people punk us and push us, but we're honoring ourselves, but we let people know the boundaries, right? But you have to practice that with yourself first in order to get the energy, get the strength to communicate that to your community. Okay, so moving forward real quick, if anyone wants to shout out or ask a question, feel free to reach out to us on Instagram. And what are some things you want to know, right? Are you having some challenges with the toxic masculinity? Do you need somebody to help you kind of work through some things? Feel free to reach out. If you notice that maybe you need some support with how to handle a situation at work or within yourself, or you feeling stressed out, and you need some support, reach out, ask a question. Feel free to reach out. I know we had a caller reach out last week, said something about Jesus. I think that's important. Connect with some sort of spiritual type of connection. I think is important, because I feel like having that particular connection helps keep you humble, helps keep you accountable. But at the same time, I feel like it helps keep you in a space where you realize that no one is better than anybody. To me, that's really important, right? At the end of the day, we all need everybody, right? Sometimes there might be somebody who'll give you a break, and you might be in a certain place in your life and you might need a break from somebody else. So keep that in mind as you guys are moving forward. All right. All right. Real quick, I want to give a shout out to Rainier Avenue World. Appreciate them for allowing us this broadcast every week. They support us to make sure that we that we can communicate to the community to get more men support out here. So make sure you guys take a look at them. You see them on Facebook as well as Instagram, and a big, huge impact that they've made within the community, right? Okay, guys. So without further ado, I want to say, when you guys are moving forward this week, what can you do to transition your toxic masculinity? And it could be anger, it could be your promiscuity. It might be, maybe you need to do more things around the house, or maybe it's a certain attitude that you have. One suggestion I would give is to listen a little bit more before you react, right? When someone says something, just kind of take a step back, hear what they have to say, and then think about, and you might not necessarily need to say it out loud, but think about that one suggestion and what you can do to take it within your world to help make you a better person, right? Because part of being successful with positive masculinity is you're open to suggestions. So, okay, guys, we're going to wrap it up right now. Appreciate you guys listening in. I'll see you guys next week. You guys have a good one. Peace.